Imagine if you could talk to the dead on the phone. That's just what a team of scientists is creating, a phone that helps you connect to the other side. Stick around to find out all about the Soul Phone project and what could possibly happen if you didn't really know who was answering the other end. Hello, and welcome back to Wicked Mysterious, or if this is your first time here, welcome. I am your host, Danny. That is my dog crying in the background, and I do have my cat. This is Lala. She says hello. Anyway, if you haven't been here before, I explore all kinds of mysteries, from aliens to paranormal stories to unexplained phenomena. If you'd like to support this channel, check out the links below. I have original merch, downloadable PDFs, and my conscious creation course if you're interested in working with me. And channel memberships are now open on YouTube, which means early episode drops and access to our private Discord community. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into today's mystery. Dr. Gary E. Schwartz is a psychologist, professor, and researcher best known for his work in consciousness studies, particularly around the survival of consciousness after physical death. He's a professor at the University of Arizona and has worked in many different departments, from psychology and psychiatry to even surgery and neurology. Before his work at Arizona, he was a professor at Yale. One day, Dr. Schwartz had an experience that changed the trajectory of his life. In an interview on academia.edu, he recounts this story, quote, "Before starting graduate school, I was on the East River Drive in Manhattan going south. I was driving in a little Opel Kadett in 1966. It was raining, and my first wife asked if I'd pull off the road, but there was a car in front, so we were parked behind this car. I remember this clearly. I heard a voice say, 'Put your seatbelt on.' Nobody wore seatbelts in those days, and I put mine on first. Then I put it on my wife, and a minute later, we were hit by a car going 55 miles an hour. The trunk was in the back seat, and my wife, Katie, was literally ripped out of the car, but because she had a seatbelt on, she stayed in her seat. When I woke up in the hospital, my wife was down the hall with a serious back injury, but I had lost memory for 2+ years of my life and didn't know I was even married," end quote. He stresses that this was the first time he'd ever had an experience like this. Beyond lab work, Schwartz says his life has been full of synchronicities, which are coincidences too poignant to be random. He also receives what he calls intuitive direction from deceased scientists who help guide his life's work, which is the Soul Phone project. This mission is part of a long-standing interest in bridging science and spirituality, kind of what we're all about here on this channel. But his work is around the question, does consciousness continue after death? Schwartz has studied psychophysiology and biofeedback for decades. Over time, his research went from parapsychology and mediumship studies, where he conducted many experiments with mediums who claimed to communicate with the dead. He said that the results were statistically significant enough to warrant further exploration. Through years of testing psychic mediums in controlled environments, Schwartz became convinced that some form of consciousness survives after physical death. He began working with other researchers and engineers to explore whether this consciousness could be detected or even contained with technology. Schwartz says that he and his team receive intuitive and psychic guidance from a group of postmaterial scientists, aka dead people. Innovators like Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Marie Curie, who were all supposedly helping guide the development of afterlife communication devices from the other side. Schwartz co-founded the Soul Phone Foundation, whose sole mission is to create reliable and replicable technology that enables communication with post-material persons. And he wants to use scientific methods to build a repeatable, measurable communication system with those who have passed on, not just for fun, but to help with grief, to help with consciousness research, and redefining human identity. He believes and says he tested the fact that consciousness survives physical death. And he also says that it might be possible to build an actual device to talk to people who have crossed over. He's calling them postmaterial persons, which is, I guess, the scientific term now for ghosts or spirits. And he's not doing this alone. There's a whole team behind him, including other scientists and spiritual researchers, even mediums. And according to them, some of the guidance is coming from the other side. When Dr. Gary Schwartz tested psychic mediums, he didn't just sit in a room and let them cold read him. He used controlled, repeatable experiments to try to rule out chance guessing or trickery. And here's what a lot of people don't understand about psi phenomena. The phenomena itself is interesting because results have proven to be statistically significant over and over again. That does not mean that a psychic can give you the winning lottery numbers or that they're right all the time. But what it does mean is that something other than chance is consistently influencing the outcome, something we don't fully understand yet, but that shows patterns beyond what was already ruled out, which is random guessing, chance, or some other deceit. There is some sort of X factor that some mediums have, and when tested in controlled environments, they're right a significant percentage of times. Now, as someone who is both skeptical of mediums and simultaneously really good at energy reading, I know that some of the audience is screaming at me right now, especially the skeptical crowd. It is true that mediums can be caught fishing for answers, throwing out vague statements, and watching for your reactions. Things like, I'm getting an M name, could it be Mike or maybe a Mary? And when you nod or react, they zero in and make it sound like they nailed it. It is a technique, it can be learned, and it happens a lot. In fact, because I read energy for a living, I became super interested if mediumship could be a skill I could be taught. I started attending a weekly mediumship circle, and the only guidance given was to say whatever information that popped in your head and hope you get a bite. She actually called it a bite. Basically, the goal was to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. I'm sure there are plenty of other qualified teachers and better courses out there, but I just tell this story to illustrate that this is a technique that is quite common. And that's what sucks about mediumship and psi phenomena. The general public can be tricked, which makes real psychics hard to believe. I feel like I'm gonna get attacked by both believers and skeptics, and the truth is I'm neither, or maybe I'm both. I think that both things can be true. There are probably real mediums and there's a lot of fake ones. I'm going to play a video here from mentalist Dustin Dean that explains exactly how mediums cold read. He did give me permission to use his video and his channel is linked below, so thank you, Mr. Dean, for allowing me to use it.
The unexpected departure over here, because I just keep tasting blood.
My name's Dustin Dean. I'm a professional national touring mentalist who has appeared on national television. I'm known for replicating and debunking psychic powers using the techniques I've learned over the years as a mentalist. That was Teresa Caputo, famously known as the Long Island Medium. She claims that she can connect with spirits and speak with the dead, charging a hefty fee and making a lot of money in this process. Let's break this reading down bit by bit. Before we go any further, if you don't know what cold reading is the idea that you start with this general information kind of rapid fire and hoping that someone somewhere connects, which is exactly what happens here.
Unexpected departure over here.
This is a common phrase that psychics keep using but need to stop using because it is so transparent and so obvious. See this time and time again from self-claimed psychic mediums, and they always start with saying, now I'm seeing a spirit that left unexpected or left suddenly, something of that nature. Almost every death ever is unexpected or sudden to someone. You might be saying right now, oh, but what about old people that have cancer and die peacefully? That's not what she's trying to get. That's not what she's trying to connect. She's throwing out that she's seeing something unexpected. Now, this narrows things down because it allows her to kind of fish for someone that's A, pretty young, because they went unexpectedly, usually means young. B, usually some type of terrible, tragic accident. She goes on to say that she's feeling blood in the throat.
Because I just keep tasting blood, so that's my symbol for when someone leaves the physical world in a okay.
Now, this doesn't really connect with anything. This is her throwing something out there, hoping that someone connects with maybe throat cancer or a wound to the neck. This is general enough to be anything, like any type of accident, any type of sudden tragic death. You're most likely going to taste blood in your throat. Now, let's see who she connects to.
I had a friend who got ran over.
Okay.
Day after his birthday.
Now, it's important to remember that she didn't pick this person out. This person volunteered themselves. Teresa, if she's speaking to a spirit, why not just talk to the spirit and connect with this specific person if she's truly talking to that spirit? Person who volunteers himself gives all the information. She says, my friend passed away, suddenly was hit by a car, it was the day after the birthday. All this information given by the sitter, not the psychic, right? It'd be very impressive if the psychic gets all that, but she didn't. She'll take credit for it, but she didn't.
When souls step forward and they take responsibility for their departure, it means that they take responsibility for their actions, choices, or decisions. Do you understand that?
This kind of misses, but she kind of reconnects it to be the fact that this friend of hers was jaywalking and it was rainy, so it happened to... She tries to say basically that it was the friend's fault, which is an awful thing to imply, but anyways, besides the point.
So, because I'm going to say this was an absolute freak thing that happened on how I left the physical world.
Yeah.
She goes on to use a technique I like to call listen and reiterate. If you remember, Teresa is the one in the beginning who said that she's getting some type of accident, right? She's getting someone who's had some type of accident, which could have been anyone in the audience. But obviously this person volunteers, and now she reiterates what has already been said throughout this conversation. She says, I'm getting that this was a freak accident. She's already established that this was an accident. And also, that's obvious. Why? It's not like the friend was like, yeah, no, it was actually planned.
But I want you, did someone leave the scene of the accident? Or, because I heard, tell her that even if they got to me sooner, I still would not have been able to survive.
Yeah, it was a very rainy night. Driver just didn't see and he jaywalked.
And now we move on to another classic psychic technique. Oh, I'm getting a sense that maybe someone left the scene, someone left. So she's fishing the fact that maybe that it was a hit and run, right? You'll notice what she does. She says this, she throws this out there, and she realizes she's not getting a yes right away. She's not seeing the person nod and be amazed. So she goes, but. She moves that in another direction, and she says, oh, well, because what they're telling me is that it doesn't matter if someone came there in time, it's too late. Which has nothing to do with that first thought she had, that someone left the scene of the crime. Those aren't connected. She simply shifted what she was saying.
He actually just said to me that you had a dream of him.
Yeah.
He goes, I told her that I was okay in a dream.
Now, finally, she pulls out one of the most common bag of tricks that a psychic uses and talks about them dreaming of someone that they lost. It's incredibly, insanely common. Almost everyone has a dream of someone in their life that suddenly passed away, or even someone who, just anyone in their life has passed away, grandmother, grandfather, friend. We all have dreams of people that we have lost. Usually it's things we want to hear from that person, like they're okay, they're doing good. So she uses this as a last resort to close off her reading and end on a high note. But anyways, here's my challenge to you, Long Island medium Teresa Caputo, and also Drew Barrymore if you're hearing this. Let me come on the show and challenge Teresa directly. If she can do her reading under my conditions, I'll give her $10,000 and finally admit that I'm wrong and that psychic mediums are genuinely real.
So, despite the unfortunate fact that many mediums do trick their grief-stricken audience into believing that they're receiving messages from loved ones and then collecting a hefty paycheck for it, I'm still open to the idea that mediumship might actually be real. And that's because there have been many controlled experiments, like the ones Dr. Gary Schwartz conducted, that show positive results. And these results, again, were statistically significant, meaning that the medium wasn't just throwing shit at the wall, and the hits weren't just lucky guesses. Something real could be happening, and that's what keeps it so interesting. So here's some of the testing that's been done and how it worked. The first experiment was the Laurie Campbell reading, and this was a triple-blind study taking place in 2002. It was published in the Afterlife Experiments by Schwartz in 2002. So medium Laurie Campbell gave readings to sitters she never met or saw. The sitters were hidden behind a screen. They gave no feedback, and they never even spoke. She provided detailed information about their deceased loved ones, and each sitter also received a decoy reading from another session. Sitters had to rate both readings on a scale from 1 to 7 for their accuracy. Readings were randomized and blinded before evaluation, so sitters didn't know which reading was meant for them, and the results were that the sitters rated their own reading significantly higher than the decoy reading. These experiments had a statistical significance of p equals 0.0002. So this means that there was only a 0.02% chance that results happened randomly. That's 1 in 5,000 odds that the outcome was just luck. It passed the scientific standard for statistical significance by a lot. Experiment number 2. This was a 5-medium comparison study in 2003, and this again was published by Dr. Schwartz in 2003 in the Journal for Psychical Research. 5 professional mediums, including Alison DuBois and John Edward. I know I will circle back to the problems with them in a minute, but 5 mediums, including those 2, each gave readings to 5 different sitters. The mediums were not allowed to see, hear, or interact with the sitters. Readings were transcribed and anonymous, and then the sitters received a packet of multiple readings, including decoys, and rated each. The results showed once again that the sitters were consistently able to identify the correct reading as their own. The overall accuracy of these readings were significantly higher than chance. The statistical significance was P is less than 0.01. So less than 1 in 100 chance that it was random. So I know you're probably screaming at me, but Danny, John Edward sucks. Yes, I know, both John Edward and Alison DuBois have been involved in many controversies. Edward is a television medium best known for his show Crossing Over with John Edward, which aired from 2001 to 2004, where he appeared to deliver messages from the dead to a live studio audience. John Edward uses cold reading, which we saw before with the Long Island Medium video. This is making general statements and refining them based on the subject's reactions. Audience members often unconsciously give information away, which Edward then uses to appear more accurate. His TV shows were heavily edited, which means misses and vague guesses may have been cut out before airing. An unaired segment from Dateline NBC showed him making numerous incorrect guesses, which were edited out of the final version that ended up airing. Skeptics say this proves that his televised readings are made to look far more accurate than they actually are. And I know it probably sounds like I don't believe in mediumship, but I'm trying to show both sides of the coin here. Again, I think both things can be true. John Edward might not be super accurate all the time, especially in high pressure scenarios like reading a live studio audience, but also he might test really, really well in controlled environments. Alison DuBois has controversy surrounding her as well. She's the medium who inspired the TV show Medium. I am absolutely terrible with TV shows and I have never watched this show, but I read that she has quite the following of supporters and an equal following of skeptics. Following her appearance in season 1 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, where she gave a reading at a dinner party hosted by Camille Grammer, her public image became tarnished. She was heavily criticized for her bizarre, abrasive behavior, making harsh and unsolicited predictions while chain smoking and drinking martinis. But I watched this clip and she didn't seem that bad to me. It just seemed like the show was heavily edited for drama, obviously. Du Bois has claimed to help solve crimes and assist law enforcement. However, many police departments have either denied working with her or said she provided no useful information. There were no high profile, independently verified cases that have been solved as a direct result of her input. But she was tested in a controlled environment, and results showed that she did score with statistical significance. Experiment number 3. HBO filmed a study with John Edward and George Anderson. This was part of a study filmed by HBO for the Afterlife series, and mediums gave blind readings to 2 different sitters. No interaction was allowed, so mediums read while the sitters were behind a curtain. The sitters were later given both readings without knowing which was theirs and asked to choose which one matched their loved one. And the results were that both sitters picked the correct reading and rated it as 80+% accurate. And the control group who reviewed the false readings only got around 36% correct. So this study by HBO proved that there was statistical significance again, but there was no specific p-value established or published in the documentary version, but it was referenced later in academic summaries as p is less than 0.01. So, once again, this statistical significance proves that it's not just a psychic getting some hits, that they got so many right in controlled conditions that the numbers defy random guessing. Dr. Schwartz's studies often hit p-values of 0.01 or even 0.0002, meaning 1 in 100 or even 1 in 5,000 odds that the results were just luck. The mediums got way more right than any other random guesser would, and they did it over and over and over again, even when they couldn't see or hear the person they were reading. So Dr. Schwartz doesn't claim he's proven the afterlife. What he argues is that mediums can sometimes access accurate information under strict scientific conditions. These results are repeatable and measurable, which means that something is going on that we can't explain by guessing, chance, or cold reading. Which brings us to the next big question. If communication with the other side is really possible, could we then build technology to make it easier? And that's exactly what Dr. Schwartz and his team are trying to do with the Soul Phone project. As of right now, the Soul Phone project is not ready to hit the Amazon Christmas catalog just yet, but they're working in phases. So phase 1 is the Soul Switch, which is basically a high-tech yes or no system that detects very subtle energy shifts, allegedly controlled by spirits. Think of the Soul Switch as sort of a spiritual light switch, a device designed to allow a yes or a no answer from a non-physical entity like a spirit or a postmaterial person. And this is being tested under lab conditions. Can a spirit influence a physical system in a measurable way? The Soul Switch is built to detect small energy shifts, such as changes in light or photons, electrical resistance, electromagnetic fields, and binary logic, where yes would equal 1 and 0 would equal no. So a question would be asked, for example, is your name David? The spirit is then prompted to answer yes or no by influencing the device. If a shift is detected in the correct channel or pattern, it's interpreted as a response. These trials often involve verified mediums who act as intermediaries or spirit communicators. According to Dr. Schwartz and his team, certain test runs of the Soul Switch have shown response patterns far above random chance. For example, if you flip a coin 100 times, you expect about 50 heads and 50 tails. But if the Soul Switch is used for 100 yes or no questions and 85 are accurate and match known facts, that's a huge deviation from randomness. Phase 2 is called the Soul Voice, a device that could eventually allow audible responses, like a ghost box, but way more advanced. So it would be less staticky and more like Siri. This phase is about moving past just yes or no questions into full verbal communication. Imagine asking a question out loud and hearing a clear spoken answer come back from the other side. A traditional ghost box scans AM and FM radio frequencies rapidly, producing static and snippets of audio. Users try to pick out words or phrases that seem relevant, and it's very chaotic, unfiltered, and full of pareidolia, which is hearing patterns that aren't really there. But the soul voice is intended to be clean with no radio scanning noise or static. It would be intelligible responses like you're having an actual conversation, not having to piece together syllables and phrases. And it would be responsive with direct answers that correlate to the questions being asked. The soul voice is designed using high sensitivity sensors to detect spirit originated signals. It would use a signal processing software to clean up and analyze the input, with voice synthesis like Siri or Alexa to convert the data into speech. And a future state might include AI to help interpret and structure complex messages. And then comes the third phase, that's the soul text, which basically is spirit texting, the idea that spirits could communicate via typed responses. This would be a digital system where entities can select letters, words, or phrases, and the communication might involve triggering light sensors, touching specific energy fields, or influencing software through intention. Eventually, the spirit could type out full responses in real time, either through a scrolling text box, auto-suggest, or full sentences. It's kind of like a Ouija board, but for the digital age. Instead of watching a planchette move, you're seeing live text feed. And finally, the big goal is the soul phone itself. This would be a fully interactive device, like a Zoom call with dead people. They even claim we'll be able to see who we're talking to. This would be an interactive device that allows real-time two-way communication with the deceased. Not just yes or no, not just text, and not just sound. They're talking about voice and video. This could be possibly via holographic projection, screen based video, or AI generated renderings based on spirit guidance. There could be AI powered conversation support to help interpret messages or assist in clarification. Now, who's helping them build this? Aside from the living team, Schwartz says they're being guided by a group of postmaterial scientists. He calls them the A team. And yes, that supposedly includes Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Marie Curie. According to Schwartz, they're working from the other side to help humanity evolve its understanding of consciousness. So let's get into the science, or the alleged science. According to the team, they've already had success detecting statistically significant energy changes during controlled experiments. They say that when working with tested and verified mediums, ones who've passed strict scientific screenings, they're seeing measurable responses. Critics, of course, are not having it. A lot of mainstream scientists say that the data is flimsy, the studies aren't peer reviewed, and that Schwartz is too quick to jump to paranormal conclusions. And that's fair. We do need to be skeptical, but we should be asking questions like this. I also think it's interesting how many people refuse to even look at the data, because if there's even a chance that some of this is real, there are huge implications. I know on this channel I've mentioned this a million times, but Dean Radin's book, Real Magic, talks about this topic specifically and in depth, about all of the studies he's done on magic being real and how sometimes it's picked up by scientific magazines and they later redact the studies with no explanation. So even when it's scientifically proven, it's still met with resistance. Okay, so let's say for argument's sake that the soul phone does work. You can talk to your loved ones, ask questions, get closure, but what if it's not actually them? What if this is Pandora's box? We open the line and don't know who or what's coming through. What if the signal was to get hijacked? This is one of the biggest philosophical and spiritual debates surrounding the soul phone. If consciousness survives, how do we tell the difference between grandma and something pretending to be grandma? And how does this affect religion? How would it affect grief or mediumship? Or what happens when death is no longer the great unknown? Some early testers of this technology claim they've had personal, meaningful experiences, and others report odd glitches. One person allegedly received an answer to a question they hadn't even spoken out loud yet, like the spirit was anticipating what they were going to ask. But something else to think about: if this becomes mainstream technology, who controls it? Is it privately owned? Is it government tested? Can it be hijacked? Could someone fake a conversation with a loved one for emotional manipulation or fraud? The ethical implications are vast and pretty scary. Some people believe that this technology is already being used behind closed doors, that governments or intelligence agencies might have had ways to communicate across dimensions for decades, and the soul phone is just the sanitized public version, but who really knows? I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this, because whether this becomes real or not, the soul phone project is one of the weirdest, most intriguing things happening in the world of science meets paranormal right now. I want to know what you think. Would you use the soul phone? Do you think we should be trying to contact the dead with technology? Or are we messing with something we don't fully understand? I'm also interested in hearing your experiences with mediums, the good, the bad, and the Teresa Caputo. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. I definitely want to hear all about it. Again, if you'd like to support this show, memberships are now open. I've got original merch, and my conscious creation course is launching soon if you want to work with me. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss a mystery. Until then, imagine higher and stay mysterious. Can you say bye? Can you say, please subscribe? Bye.